G'day, folks, and welcome back to the Stoney Tony Show, where we take complex software problems, roll them up, spark them up, and somehow make them make sense. I'm your host, Stoney Tony, senior software engineer, part-time philosopher, and full-time lover of metaphors.
Hi everyone, I'm Freya, product owner, enterprise wrangler, and the designated adult in the room today. I'm here to keep Tony slightly on track and talk about one of the spiciest topics in tech delivery, engineering estimates.
Oh yeah, estimates. Those little numbers that people ask for when they want certainty, but don't believe in astrology. Personally, I reckon they're like predicting when a kookaburra is going to laugh. You can guess, but mate, you're probably wrong.
And this is why I'm here, because some of us believe estimates are more than arm waving with time boxes attached. They help us prioritize, coordinate teams, manage budgets, actually deliver the things on purpose.
See? She said that with total confidence. Meanwhile, I'm over here thinking, what if we just built smaller chunks and shipped them quicker instead of arguing whether something's 2 points, 5 points, or an existential crisis?
And that right there is today's debate. Are estimates essential for large-scale delivery, or are they just an expensive guessing game? We're diving straight in.
Grab a cuppa, settle in, loosen the old brain hinges. Let's get into this.
The Stoney Tony Show.
Alrighty, Freya. Let's kick off with the big spicy meatball, estimates. To me, they're like asking a mate, hey, when will the surf be perfect next month? You might land on a good answer, but most likely you'll get wet and disappointed.
Tony, I get the pain, trust me, but estimates aren't crystal balls. They're alignment tools. When I ask a team for estimates, I'm not expecting divine prophecy. I'm trying to understand scope, risk, and whether we're talking a weekend warm-up or a quarter's worth of work.
See, that's where I reckon the trap is. The moment you put a number on something, someone takes it as a promise. I could say 2 days-ish, and suddenly it's in a slide deck presented to 12 executives who think I'm guaranteeing a smooth landing.
But that's a process problem, not a number problem. Healthy teams turn estimates into conversations. If someone hears 2 days, they should also be hearing, with these assumptions, based on what we know now, as a forecast, not a blood oath.
Yeah, but most companies treat even the loosest estimate like it's carved into a sacred stone tablet. Developers end up padding, hedging, or straight up guessing. It feels like we're spending all this time pretending uncertainty isn't real.
And yet, without any forecast, how do you expect a business to plan? If I tell leadership, we'll deliver it when the universe aligns, they can't budget, sequence dependencies, or commit to customers. Estimates don't remove uncertainty, they frame it.
Or, and hear me out, we framework instead. Break stuff into tiny pieces, prioritize ruthlessly, deliver continuously, then we don't need to guess, because the feedback loop speaks for itself. It's like cooking. Instead of predicting how long a feast will take, just serve courses as they're ready.
I do love a good food analogy, but in enterprise land, we don't just have a dinner. We've got 5 kitchens, 3 head chefs, and 100 hungry customers waiting at the same time. Estimates help coordinate that chaos.
And I'd say coordination comes from communication and flow, not throwing numbers at the wall.
And I'd say numbers support communication when they're used well.
Alright, fair. But I still reckon half the world uses estimates like a blindfold, not a compass.
Which is exactly why this conversation matters.
The Stoney Tony Show.
All right, Tony, let's zoom out a bit. One of the biggest misconceptions I hear is that estimates slow teams down. But in practice, they speed us up because they force conversations early. They expose missing requirements, risks, dependencies, all the things that, without estimates, pop up later, like jump scares in a bad horror film.
Yeah, but Freya, sometimes those estimation sessions feel like a bad horror film. A bunch of people stuck in a room arguing about whether a task is a 3 or a 5, while the real monster, building the thing, is just waiting outside the door.
Sure, But the monster is easier to slay when the team actually knows what it is. Estimation isn't about precision, it's about shared understanding. When people estimate tasks, they naturally ask questions they wouldn't have thought of otherwise. That alignment saves weeks of rework.
I hear you. But you know how many features I've built that became simple after I started coding? Sitting around guessing beforehand would have taken longer than knocking together the prototype.
That works when you've got a senior engineer with deep context. But at scale, across multiple teams, in a regulated environment, we cannot run everything like a hackathon, Tony.
Mate, I'm not saying never talk about things. I'm saying the estimate ceremony shouldn't be the ceremony that makes it clear. If you need estimates to understand the work, that's a smell. It means the problem isn't estimation, it's that your specs are foggy, like a winter morning in Hobart.
And sometimes the fog is the point. We estimate to clear it, to give everyone a sense of direction. Without that, teams wander, and timelines stretch like melted mozzarella.
Oh, now that's a metaphor. I taught you well.
Yes, you can claim that one. For seriously, estimates bring structure in environments where chaos is otherwise guaranteed.
And I'm saying that structure can come from flow, small batch sizes, and tight feedback loops. Not big old planning sessions with Fibonacci numbers flying around like confetti.
And that is why this topic never dies.
The Stoney Tony Show.
Alrighty, Freya. Let's talk commitments. The old deadline versus deliverable cage match. Personally, I don't trust deadlines. They're like those best before dates on milk. Half the time they're meaningless. And if you follow them too strictly, you pull perfectly good stuff down the drain.
Tony, deadlines are not milk expiry dates, mate. They're alignment tools. When a company runs dozens of teams, all depending on each other, you can't just say, she'll be right. It'll ship when it ships. People need something to plan around.
I get that, but deadlines tend to turn into concrete tombstones. You miss one, and suddenly it's like you've committed a war crime. I'd rather commit to the thing that we're delivering, the outcome, and let the date be a guideline, not a guillotine.
And I'd rather commit to a date where possible, because the business isn't working in infinite time. Marketing, finance, partnerships, they all revolve around windows. You miss a window by 3 months, and suddenly that feature is worth half as much.
Sure, but if you lock in the date before the team even understands the work, you get this classic, scope gets shaved thinner than a backpacker's budget, corners cut, tech debt piling up, everyone's stressed, and the feature ends up being a sad, half-baked version of its former self.
Which is why good product owners don't commit blindly. We commit once we've shaped the work with engineering. But once we do agree, the date helps everyone stay focused and avoid distraction. Guardrails, Tony, not jail bars.
Mate, every time someone says guardrails, engineers hear prison fence. I swear. But look, I'm not against focus. I'm against artificial pressure that turns creative problem solvers into keyboard smashing panic goblins.
And I'm against drifting delivery, where priorities float around like leaves in a swimming pool. There's a middle ground, Tony. Commit where it makes sense, negotiate scope where it doesn't.
That middle ground's probably the only thing keeping the industry from collapsing into chaos, eh? Alright, I'll give you that one. Dates can exist, as long as they're not treated like the 10 Commandments chiseled into stone tablets.
Deal. But we're absolutely keeping the tablets. We just write in pencil.
Now that's the most reasonable thing I've heard all day.
The Stoney Tony Show.
Alright, Freya, let's talk about the mystical world of story points, the currency of made-up numbers. Honestly, every time someone says, this one's a 5, I feel like we're bidding for a horse we haven't even seen. 5 going once, 5 going twice, sold to the engineer who's had the least sleep.
Tony, they're not meant to be horse bids. They're relative measures of complexity. Points give teams a way to compare one piece of work against another without pretending every task fits nicely into hours.
Yeah, but that's the problem, mate. Everyone says they're not hours, then the moment someone high up looks at the board, suddenly 5 points means 2 days, 8 points means 4 days, and 12 means cancel your weekend plans, champ.
That's misuse, not the system. Story points help teams understand capacity over time. Velocity trends show how much a squad can usually deliver in a sprint. It's not supposed to be a promise, it's a signal.
A signal, right. But half the time, that signal gets treated like gospel. Your velocity dropped. What happened? I don't know, Sharon. Maybe the team finally took lunch breaks. Maybe we stopped cutting corners. Maybe Doug's cat sat on his keyboard and committed to Mang.
And yet, without velocity, we're flying blind. I've worked with teams who refused story points before. Stakeholders couldn't see patterns, couldn't forecast, couldn't understand workload. It turned into chaos.
Or freedom. Beautiful, chaotic, creative freedom. Look, if story points were a vibe check, I'd be into it. But too often, they become KPIs for humans, and humans are terrible KPIs.
So what's your alternative then? Just vibes-based planning?
Not vibes, flow. Track cycle time, track throughput, actual measurements instead of imaginary numbers, real data from real work instead of pointing at cards like we're reading tarot.
Cycle time and throughput are valuable, but they don't replace forecasting. And at enterprise scale, forecasting is non-negotiable.
Maybe, but maybe the forecasting obsession exists because story points gave everyone a false sense of precision in the first place.
Or maybe without them, you'd spend half your sprint arguing what's realistic to deliver.
I'd argue anyway, Freya. That's my gift.
All right. Let's roll into topic 5, the big one. Can modern teams operate entirely without estimates?
Oh yeah, now we're turning up the heat.
The Stoney Tony Show.
Alright, last one for today. The big spicy burrito of the episode. Can modern agile teams run with zero estimates? My answer? Absolutely. Just like a good surf lesson, you don't predict every wave. You just paddle out, keep your balance, and ride where it comes.
Tony, teams are not surfers. They have dependencies. They have budgets. They have managers. They have...
Oh, I know. They have stakeholders who want certainty delivered in neat quarterly boxes. But hear me out. Lots of teams already operate without estimates and deliver faster. Kanban style flow, work in progress limits, ruthless prioritization. No pointing, no t-shirt sizing, no elaborate ceremonies that feel like Dungeons and Dragons with deadlines.
And that works for some teams, usually smaller squads with tight feedback loops and shared context. But take a company with 10 product teams, 3 platform teams, and a few external vendors. You know what happens when they all say, no estimates? Chaos. Everything becomes, it'll be done when it's ready, which is basically a product owner's recurring nightmare.
Nightmares build character, Freya.
Very helpful, Tony. But seriously, at scale, estimates aren't about predicting the future perfectly. They're about creating enough confidence to coordinate. Enough of a signal to say, this thing is small, this thing is big, this thing will explode the roadmap if we start it unprepared.
See, that's the thing though. I reckon the signal comes from slicing work small and shipping fast, not from trying to foresee the entire mountain before climbing it. If your tasks are tiny enough, your lead time becomes your forecast. No psychic powers required.
And in a vacuum, I'd agree. But businesses have cycles. Quarterly planning, budget approvals, compliance reviews, all require some level of foresight. I'm not defending 10-hour planning meetings, but I am defending shared understanding of complexity before we commit to people and resources.
So you're saying estimates aren't the goal? Alignment is?
Exactly. And estimates are just one of the tools we use to get there. And for some teams, ditching estimates entirely leads to speed and clarity. I'm not against that. I just think it's important to understand where it works and where it becomes magical thinking.
All right. I'll admit it. For some organizations, no estimates might be like going cold turkey on caffeine. Possible? Yes. Pleasant? Probably not. Fair enough. I still think estimates are like guessing how long a yarn will be before you've even spun it. But hey, this episode's taught me at least one thing. Context is everything.
And that's the perfect note to end on.
Too right. All right, folks. That wraps up today's discussion. Relax. I'll see you in the next one.